us to so equip ourselves spiritually and physically as to be prepared for events ahead. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, you would have heard that in the virus mutation, it is changing the amino acid sequence in the spike protein. Now, when the immune system makes an antibody against a foreign protein, that antibody is very specific for the protein. So if the virus changes the structure of the spike protein, then the antibodies that were made to a previous spike protein would be less effective against the mutated spike protein. So these viruses have the capacity to mutate and try to dodge the impact of the immune system's antibodies against whatever component. The flu virus does that. Other viruses can do it, not all, but some. So it brings us to an interesting point. And I'm going to go over the immune system briefly again and talk about how we can strengthen the immune system. Remember, we said that the immune system has two components: the innate immune system, or first responders. That is non-specific. It just attacks anything and any invader, virus, bacteria, any invader, made up of cells we call macrophages and neutrophils, white blood cells, and they have the ability to attack and destroy. When the innate immune system is strong, it can attack and liquidate, destroy an invader, the virus, bacteria. Now, at the same time, the inflammatory response is involved, and the inflammatory response is a two-edged sword. You want it to be strong enough to attack the invader, but you don't want an overexplosion to damage normal body tissues. I would have told you before, keeping it simple, of the adaptive immune system. That is the part of the immune system that will take long to kick in, and it will be specific in that you have cells, T cells and B cells. These are lymphocytes. B lymphocytes made in the bone marrow, T lymphocytes made in the thymus gland, which usually functions when we're young and does its job early. And the adaptive immune system, through the B lymphocytes, will be making specific antibodies to the particular virus or bacterium, and also will be remembering via the B lymphocyte memory cells and the T memory cells, remembering the particular invader of, for example, the virus, so that next time there is an invasion, it can react quickly and liquidate it. So the adaptive immune system is highly specific and has to be trained to produce specific antibodies against the particular invader, usually by a first infection or by vaccine. But the innate immune system reacts in general first. It is not specific. It will attack anything. And we want both arms to be strong, and we want both arms to be functioning in such a way that the inflammatory process is also enough to do the job against the invader and not overexplode to hurt other normal tissues. Now, you will notice that some people may get this virus and have absolutely no symptoms at all, or minimal symptoms. And some people get the disease and become very ill, may have to go on a ventilator or even die. So we are going to look at some of the factors involved here in strengthening the immune system overall, and especially the innate immune system, which attacks the virus early and then alerts the adaptive immune system. Now, if a virus is mutating so that the antibodies produced by the adaptive immune system may not be as effective, then you would want your innate system to be sharp. That is very important. So it boils down then to a good immune system, good health. And first of all, there are some people who genetically, hereditarily, have a tip-top, a very good immune system, very good innate immune system, and scarcely would catch anything. And when they catch it, it doesn't do them much of harm at all. We do not know all that is involved there, but we do know that that is so. And then looking at the things which can weaken the immune system, especially the innate or first response immune system, let's look at them carefully here. Lack of sleep. And remember, we said before that sleeping before midnight is crucially important. If you're sleeping after midnight, you are doing your immune system a disservice, because 1 hour before midnight is worth 2 after. You have to sleep more after midnight to make up. So 7 to 8 hours sleep, very important, and getting a considerable amount of that sleep before midnight. We're recommended to be in bed by 9:30. A lot of people don't get enough sleep, and that has been shown to injure the immune system, the innate arm. So a good night's rest is an important part of good health reform, of good primary prevention. Then, especially as we age, the immune system tends to age as well. And it has been shown that along with good sleep, a good night's rest, 7 to 8 hours, exercise is important. Exhaustive exercise can be harmful, but moderate, consistent exercise on a regular basis has been shown to improve immune system function, especially in the elderly. Moderate, consistent exercise. So 7 to 8 hours sleep at night and moderate, consistent exercise, both very good for a healthy immune system, especially as people age. Another thing that damages the immune system is an unhealthy diet. Refined, processed animal products, refined, processed carbohydrates and refined sugars, and an insufficient intake of fruits and vegetables, whole grains and nuts, and especially the leafy vegetables and the cruciferous vegetables, and certain herbs which have been shown to contain polyphenols, which are very good for nutrition. I'll talk about some of them later on. We mentioned aging already. As we get older, the immune system tends to age, so we have to be more vigilant to do what we can to keep the immune system in good shape as we age. Unhealthy lifestyles, smoking and alcohol abuse disrupt the immune system. And then, as we know already, underlying conditions. And some underlying conditions people don't know. And sometimes their doctor might not know and might think the person is in good health. Let's look at a tricky one called the metabolic syndrome. The metabolic syndrome is when a person is not yet diabetic, but their blood sugar is not perfect. Their fasting blood sugar or their blood sugar after eating a meal may not yet be in a diabetic range to be diagnosed as diabetes, but it is not normal. Blood fats are inching up. They have on a a little bit of excess fat, but you may not even call them obese. And the blood pressure is not the perfect 110/70, but it may be 130/84. And people, including doctors, may call that all right, although the American Heart Association guidelines have been published and are strict. So a person with the metabolic syndrome may be said to be healthy and have no underlying condition. But the metabolic syndrome has been shown to cause dysregulation of the immune system. And a lot of young people have the metabolic syndrome. A bit too much fat on the body, around the waist, a bit too much fat in the blood sugar is not where they should be, blood fat's not where they should be, blood pressure not where it should be, not yet in the range to be labeled with a diagnosis, but none of these indicators are where they should be. That is the metabolic syndrome. It is a tricky syndrome because the person may be passed as having no underlying condition, passed as healthy, but it causes the immune system to function less optimally and less maximally. And then, of course, there are the obvious underlying conditions: obesity, hypertension, diabetes, any chronic organ disease like chronic liver disease, chronic kidney disease, coronary artery disease. All of those would cause the immune system not only not to function properly, but any inflammatory process will cause these organs to go into serious trouble, even shut down. So when it comes to general principles, good sleep, a good night's rest, regular, moderate exercise, both have been shown by studies to impact positively on the immune system, especially as people age. And then nutrition, good nutrition. And when we talk about good nutrition for the immune system, there must be adequate protein and good quality protein. The legumes, your peas and beans and legumes and lentils. We're talking about vitamins. We'll talk about them in detail in a minute. Minerals, fruits and vegetables, and whole grains or nuts and seeds. Fruits and vegetables give polyphenols, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory molecules, which are being researched because they not only strengthen the immune system, but they modulate the inflammatory response, and they help the innate system to be more aggressive while at the same time not triggering an overexplosion of inflammation. And you want your innate immune system to be in top shape if a virus is looking to mutate, so that the adaptive immune system's antibodies may not be able to do the job that it would otherwise do. You want the innate immune system to be sharp to hit that virus hard without causing any inflammatory explosion. We're going to come back to nutrition in a minute, but other general principles, good gut bacteria, a lot of research is being done in the intestinal bacterial flora, as we call it, or the microbiome. Good healthy gut bacteria enhance the immune system positively. Another important factor for good immune health is fasting and intermittent fasting. Both have been shown to strengthen the immune system. They produce what we talked about some time ago, autophagy, enabling the cells to self-clean and get rid of any intracellular junk and recycle, and that strengthens the immune system. So intermittent fasting makes the immune system sharper and reduces inflammation, whereas eating all the time helps to cause chronic inflammation, and the cells are not given a chance to self-clean and recycle. So eating nonstop is unhealthy. Eating 3 meals a day with nothing in between, or 2 meals a day with nothing in between, are much healthier. Some people eat 4, 5, 6 times a day. It's part of the modern American culture now to eat nonstop. Not only promotes obesity, but it dysregulates the immune system. Whereas intermittent fasting or having periods when you fast for a day or two, or just a day, strengthens the immune system, definitely. So in nutrition, we need adequate protein. There are certain fats which are very good for the immune system. The polyunsaturated and the monounsaturated and the omega-3s in a proper balance are needed for good immune function. And vitamins. Vitamins that we take for granted, like vitamin A. There's some parts of the world where people are on the move in refugee war-torn areas where a lot of people lack vitamin A. Vitamin A, the insufficiency or deficiency is common in poor, war-ravaged parts of the world. Vitamin A is important for the immune system function. Very important. We get pre-vitamin A from carotene, carrots, and so on, and they're converted to vitamin A, but vitamin A and carotenes are very important for good immune function. So a healthy diet with a lot of green leafy vegetables and the cruciferous vegetables. There are mysterious substances there, some we know, some we don't know, the polyphenols, the antioxidants, the anti-inflammatory molecules that, while they strengthen the immune system, prevent excessive inflammation. And then there are some specific things we want to look at again. So let me just mention them. I was listening to an expert and he was talking about the specific things. So don't forget the general things are very important. Adequate sleep at night. Moderate, consistent, regular exercise. Healthy nutrition with an abundance of vegetables and green leafy vegetables, fruits, nuts, grains. And the importance of good, healthy gut bacteria and of not constantly overfeeding the body, giving it a break, intermittent fasting, giving the body a chance to cleanse and the cells to recycle and perform autophagy. Now, some specific things for strengthening the innate arm of the immune system, which we've talked about already. We mentioned vitamin D. Vitamin D helps the immune cells, the innate immune cells, to produce two kinds of protein, one called defensin, the other one called catalycidin. And the thing about defensin and catalycidin, these proteins, is that they bind to the spike protein of the COVID virus and helps to minimize the ability of the COVID virus to attach to the ACE2 receptor. So if vitamin D is helping your immune system to produce proteins, and this is the innate system, these proteins are not specific, they're not antibodies, they're non-specific, but they will just attack the virus. You want that innate immune system to be sharp. Vitamin D does that. Vitamin D at the same time strengthens the adaptive immune system and is anti-inflammatory, helping to prevent any cytokine explosion. And we've talked over and over about vitamin D, so I'm not going to go over that again. But vitamin D, sunlight, 4,000 to 5,000 units. I saw this week gone that Professor Emeritus Sir Henry Fraser mentioned in a short letter to the editor, he was talking against the conspiracy theories causing people to be afraid of the vaccination. And then he ended the article seniors in nursing homes, the important, and he stressed that it was unfortunate that authorities were not mentioning vitamin D as they should. Same thing that John Campbell in the UK and Professor C. Holt in the USA stressed, that was unfortunate that authorities are not mentioning vitamin D. People are waiting for what they call classical double-blind trial evidence. But while you wait, you can take it. because it does a lot of good otherwise. So vitamin D, we're not going over that again. I've mentioned it too many times for people not to have grasped from these talks the importance of vitamin D for good overall health and good immune health. 4,000 to 5,000 units a day, important. Then we talked about N-acetylcysteine because that provides the amino acid cysteine and helps, which is sometimes not easily attainable, and helps the immune system and the liver and the kidney and the body, every cell in the body, to make the intracellular antioxidant glutathione. And NAC, at the same time, while strengthening the immune system, helps to prevent the immune system from attacking self, helps to modulate autoimmunity and autoimmune inflammation. So NAC, N-acetylcysteine, has a strong hydrogen sulfide smell. So some people are turned off by the smell, but that is not important. It is important for immune health. It's important for liver, brain, lung, and kidney health. It helps to reduce the excessive production of mucus and inflammation. It's very good for the lungs, excellent for lung health. NAC, N-acetylcysteine, 600 milligrams twice a day. And it works along with selenium because, as I stressed before, glutathione is part of a complex called glutathione peroxidase complex, which contains selenium. And so N-acetylcysteine with selenium, good for the immune system and overall health, very good for the lungs, the respiratory system where this virus attacks. So we've looked at vitamin D, N-acetylcysteine, selenium. Then I saw some researcher talking about curcumin. We've mentioned curcumin before, the turmeric extract, fresh turmeric, turmeric powder, turmeric supplements, curcumin. Curcumin strengthens the immune system for sure, but it is powerfully anti-inflammatory. So while it strengthens the innate system to attack, it will quench any excessive inflammation. A lot of research has been done on curcumin, and is now being shown that although it strengthens the immune system, it is good in rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune SLE and so on because of its powerful anti-inflammatory properties. Curcumin, good for the brain, good for the immune system, anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer. Curcumin, turmeric extract. Well, we mentioned vitamin E. Vitamin E is controversial in many studies, but what the research does tell us is that getting vitamin E from your walnuts and almonds and green leafy vegetables, where you get the gamma vitamin E, especially from walnuts, that is a very good natural form of vitamin E. So if you have to supplement with vitamin E, you don't have to take more than 400 units a day. But if you eat almonds and walnuts and other nuts and green leafy vegetables, you get a good amount of vitamin E, especially in the gamma form. Of vitamin E is good and necessary for all cell membrane integrity in the body and for the immune system as well. Vitamin C, well, we know about vitamin C, fruits and vegetables, and vitamin C to its powerful antioxidant properties, keep the immune system in good health. Zinc, we mentioned before. Zinc, very important for the innate immune system. Again, the innate arm, vitamin C and zinc for the innate arm. And now a lot of work is being done in pine bark extract and grapeseed extract. Very good for the overall health of the circulation, anti-inflammatory, and also enhance the innate immune system considerably. I heard Professor Roger Seaholt last week talking about not only vitamin D and zinc and adequate sleep at night and moderate exercise as we get older, but he was talking too about the use of eucalyptus. You can use eucalyptus tea or just a drop of eucalyptus oil in a little water to sip. And some people inhale, very good for upper respiratory infections as well. Other things that people have looked at and studied, lemongrass, Citral in lemongrass exerts cancer preventing as well as immune stimulating properties. Lemongrass tea, garlic, antimicrobial, immune stimulating, however you use it, once you use it properly. And oregano, lemongrass, garlic, oregano, help the immune system to fight. Now, in all these things, we are not talking about a cure for the virus or even things that would prevent you from getting the virus. We're talking about things that enhance the immune system, that should you get the virus, you will fight it off successfully without severe morbidity or without risk of hospitalization. Another good herb for fighting the immune system is of course, Echinacea. And so lemongrass, garlic, oregano, these are very good at enhancing the innate immune system. So we have to keep our health on the whole in tip-top shape, because if you have these viruses coming, and the experts tell us the earth is ripe now for other pandemics to come, and these viruses have the ability to mutate, so that if your adaptive immune system is making a specific antibody against the spike protein of a particular strain, and then there's a mutation, so that that antibody was specific for the spike protein on a given strain, and not as specific for the spike protein on another strain, the virus will begin to dodge the impact of the antibodies. The influenza virus does that. That is why they give a vaccine every year, trying to cover the mutant strains. So it means then that while we are glad for the adaptive immune system producing antibodies, when we see a virus mutating so that the adaptive immune system would have to be changing its response in antibodies, we're looking more to a strong innate immune system to attack early and begin the work of eradicating the virus early. We have looked at research in the past which shows that in younger people, the innate immune system is strong and tends to get the virus under control early. So the adaptive immune system, when it comes in and does its work, simply has to recognize and produce the antibodies and do the memory, but the innate would have done a job of keeping that virus under control and knocking it down early. As we get older, the innate immune system tends to be less effective, and the inflammation associated with it more severe. Hence the importance with aging of knowing the things which can strengthen the innate immune system and reduce inflammation. So vitamin D, N-acetylcysteine, selenium, curcumin from turmeric, vitamin C and zinc, pine bark extract, grapeseed extract. Vitamin A we take for granted, and we should be getting enough vitamin A, provitamin A from carrots and green leafy vegetables, and vitamin A itself important in keeping the lining of the respiratory tract and the immune system in good shape. And then we mentioned the herbs like curcumin, and we mentioned herbs before like clove and ginger, which are anti-inflammatory. And by using more of these in your cooking, you won't require the amount of salt you used before. And these exert immune boosting and anti-inflammatory properties. So we have to pay special attention to our overall health and the health message in terms of primary prevention. Keeping our body mass index, our body weight where it should be, avoiding and fighting against the metabolic syndrome, keeping our blood pressure and our blood sugar. We want that blood pressure to be 110/70 for young adults, up to 120/80, and not going into the pre-hypertension range. We want that HbA1c to be under 5.6. We want a fasting blood sugar to be under 5.3. Remember, you're not going to be called diabetic unless your fasting blood sugar is 7 or more millimoles per liter, or 120 milligrams per deciliter, which is the American units. But if your blood sugar, your perfect normal blood sugar fasting should be less than 5.6, in fact, should be less than 5.4 to be perfect millimoles per liter. If it is, say, 6, you're not yet diabetic, but it is a condition called impaired fasting glucose, which means that your immune system is not going to be in optimum condition. Although you're not yet diabetic, you are in a condition in which your fasting blood sugar is not where it should be. Similarly, if after eating a meal, 2 hours after, your blood sugar is not back down under 7.8 millimoles per liter, although you're not diabetic, because you're not diabetic unless you're 2 hours after a glucose drink or a meal, your blood glucose is 11.1 or more. But if it is not below 7.8, it is a pre-diabetic condition known as impaired glucose tolerance, and that also dysregulates the immune system. If your body mass index is not in the 22, 23 range and is up towards 25, you may not yet be called obese, you may be simply called overweight, but that is also going to cause dysregulation of the immune system. And these are things that people overlook. And because they don't have a diagnostic label, they may say they're healthy and have no underlying condition. But in fact, they may have the metabolic syndrome, which disrupts ideal immune system function. So adequate sleep, adequate exercise, keeping our body mass index, our body weight where it should be, good nutrition, healthy nutrition, an abundance of vegetables and green leafy vegetables, not eating every 5 minutes, but the role of intermittent fasting in strengthening the immune system. And then the specific ones we mentioned, vitamin D, NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, selenium, curcumin, vitamin C, zinc, pine bark extract, grapeseed extract, common teas like lemongrass, the herbs like garlic and oregano, Echinacea was mentioned before, vitamin A and E. So we have to be thinking in terms of keeping our innate immune system in tip-top shape, avoiding tobacco, avoiding alcohol abuse, which is common in the world, late night parties and so on, getting adequate rest, caring our health, eating and drinking healthily, and an abundance of fruits and vegetables, and not just the sugary things and the refined processed carbohydrates, which will not allow our immune system to be in optimum function. Very important then, as we see mutations occurring, and as the adaptive immune system has the role through the B lymphocytes of making antibodies. Antibodies are absolutely specific. And if the virus changes one amino acid in that spike protein, the antibody will not be as effective to the new variant as it was to a previous one. And therefore, it's going to boil down to if mutations are going to be occurring and the antibodies are going to make less of an impact, it is going to boil down to having a very strong innate immune system, while at the same time modulating any inflammatory excess. The two of those going together, strengthening the innate arm and being anti-inflammatory. And this boils down to healthy nutrition and healthy practices, adequate sleep, adequate exercise, eating healthy, avoiding the refined processed junk, whether it is animal or processed carbohydrates, and eating an abundance of fruits and vegetables, whole grains and nuts and seeds. And then the particular supplements that you can take to enhance immunity, vitamin D, N-acetylcysteine, selenium, your turmeric, very important anti-inflammatory curcumin, and the others we've stressed over the past year in terms of keeping the immune system in tip-top shape. So the news we're getting with the mutations means that the virus is trying to dodge antibodies being produced by the adaptive arm, and therefore keeping the innate arm strong to give the virus a good first blow so that it can't do much damage thereafter is going to be very important, strengthening the innate arm of the immune system. All right, thank you. Any questions as we come up to the last few minutes? Or any points to share? Very important as we see how things are developing to keep the innate arm in good shape. Question?
If there could be a time put to when your body could produce an antibody against an infection.
Well, it is going to vary from individual to individual. Don't forget that a virus comes in. A virus comes in, the innate immune system is going to do the first attack and also help to process the virus and pass it on to the cells of the adaptive immune system that have to then look at its molecular biology and given time, usually a matter of 4 weeks and beyond, to make antibodies. And then when antibodies are made, the memory cells are also made, T memory cells and B memory cells to remember the invading virus, so that at the second infection, memory, the cellular memory is immediately activated, antibodies are produced, and the thing is knocked out of the place before you even realize it. So usually in excess of 4 weeks, 4 to 12 weeks to make antibodies and for the memory and so on to be consolidated. And thereafter, a second infection or a second vaccine dose will be met by an even heightened response and consolidate the memory and consolidate the adaptive arm in its specific response.
So that is what. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just asking about a situation in which a diabetic has a fasting, well, overnight, I should call it, blood sugar between 5.4, 6.2, in that kind of direction. On a sustained basis, basically, having eaten, well, the last meal before sunset, but that meal 2 hours after has been eaten, but not obviously, there's a spike. It goes up beyond the requisite level. How will you speak to that?
Yes, well, the difference between, of course, a non-diabetic and a diabetic is that you're going to be harder pressed to keep the diabetic fasting blood sugars. You can keep the fasting blood sugars down below 7, which you want, but to keep it at the perfect number of under 5.4 requires a bit more effort, and to prevent the spike after eating requires careful choice of what is being eaten. There are certain foods, for example, high fiber oats, for example, oat bran. Oat bran will cause scarcely any spike compared to white flour or white rice. So choosing natural, high fiber, specific foods that have been researched and wouldn't cause the same kind of spike as other foods would be important. Adjusting medication would be important. And then looking at the HbA1c, notwithstanding occasional spikes, if the HbA1c is down in a diabetic, if that HbA1c down at 6, without the excessive use of insulin, that is very good. So all those factors will be involved if you're looking at a diabetic situation, okay? But I would say for diabetic, keeping the fasting blood sugar around 5.4, 5.6, and so long as the spike post 2 hour post-meal spike isn't above 9, that is not bad so long as the HbA1c is well down below 7. It just means a little tightening and a little important selection of choices of foods to minimize spiking, and then using things that, notwithstanding the little bit of excess sugar, may be impacting negatively on the immune system, using things that will strengthen the immune system that we mentioned before, vitamin D, NAC, curcumin, and so on. And the person should be all right keeping that HbA1c down as a diabetic.
Thank you.
Okay, Doc,
Good evening.
can I?
Yes,
Hello.
Mrs. Phillip, you're coming on.
All right, I just want you to say a little bit more about eucalyptus oil, if you can, please. The
Eucalyptus, you can get
oil.
the leaves and make a tea, which is and make a mild tea, which is good. You can the eucalyptus oil is strong. You can't use a lot of it. Just one drop in a glass of warm water to sip is good for respiratory infections, has been studied. If coupled with hydrotherapy, hot and cold fomentations to the chest, very good in respiratory infections as well. And I think Professor Roger Seaholt was talking about the things you can do in the early phase of any respiratory infection, apart from the things we mentioned, the one drop of eucalyptus oil, drinking it, hot and cold fermentations, keeping the body core temperature warm because that enhances the immune system. And I mentioned before that people usually jump to lower the fever when they have a fever, but the fever is part of the body's response to viruses. When the temperature goes up, it so long as it doesn't go beyond a certain point, of course, as the temperature goes up, it activates the immune system to fight against the virus better. So though we like to lower the temperature, don't over aggressively lower the temperature, because having a good body core temperature to fight the virus is also important. And there was a man who won the Nobel Prize for that. I think Roger Seaholt mentioned him in his last talk. We used to laugh at the old time people sometimes when there was, when you had a cold, wrapping you in flannel and so on, they were trying to maintain a good core temperature and sweat you out. And that has now been shown to help the immune system fight the infection. Of course, if the temperature is above a certain level, you want to bring it back down, and hence tepid sponges and so on, but don't bring it all the way down, because a certain adequate core temperature is important for helping the immune system to fight.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening, sir. How can we enhance the bacteria for the small gut?
The bacteria for the small gut, eating wholesome foods, eating high fiber foods from roots, for example, beets, carrots, green leafy vegetables, because the good healthy bacteria like to feed on good healthy stuff. If people eat a lot of junk, enhance the growth of bad bacteria which like junk. For example, there's a junk in the stomach called Helicobacter pylori, when you eat a lot of fast foods and meats and so on, that rejoices. But if you eat lots of vegetables and so on, it doesn't like it. So eating healthy, and some people recommend you can take a probiotic. Probiotics are the friendly bacteria you can enhance by taking a probiotic and eating a good natural high fiber diet as well.
Thank you.
Brother Douglas, Steve Quadrington here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Hi. I have two questions here from two friends of mine. At what number does pre-hypertension begin? I know you were talking about the ideal, what we call the good one, which is like 120/70. But you were talking sometime back that research is showing now that might be actually where it actually begins. Can you clarify that a little clearer? And the second question is, what role does adequate intake of water play in enhancing the immune system?
Okay, first one, the American Heart Association a couple of years ago, almost 4 years ago now, time flies so fast, in a study. It was controversial, the results they brought out, but the research backs up that a young healthy adult should have a blood pressure of 110/70 or even a little bit less. It depends on your genetics. Some people have a blood pressure of 100/60. That is their normal. That is superb. But they were showing that when a young adult reaches a blood pressure of 120/80, which used to be the previously accepted norm, that is now called pre-hypertension. And numbers that we would have called all right in the past, 10 years ago and so on, 130 somebody over 80 somebody, for example, 134/86, that we might say is all right. The research is showing, the American Heart Association saying that that is not all right. That person should be counseled on rest, exercise, weight loss, and diet to get it down towards under the 120/80, towards the 110/70 mark. We're talking about young, healthy adults. Of course, as people age, the arteries get a little bit stiffer and they allow a little leeway for older people, but still, all up to 70, you want to keep those arteries flexible, which means adequate sleep and exercise and the anti-inflammatory antioxidants, and keep that blood pressure in the range of 110/70, 120/80, because above that, we're going into 120/80 is called pre-hypertension in the young adult. So if I see somebody age 30, that is young adulthood, up to age 40, young adulthood still, and that person has a blood pressure of 135/86, I will not tell that person your blood pressure is all right. So this blood pressure should be really 110/70 or no more than 120/80 at your age, 30 to 40 years old. So start your program, healthy eating and exercise and adequate rest, and get it where it should be. In the past, we would have said, oh, that is all right because it hasn't reached 140/90, which is the cutoff point. Once the blood pressure is 140/90 and above, that is definitely hypertension according to definition. But we would have excused lower levels before, but the American Heart Association says, oh no, get it to ideal by counseling and straighten up the lifestyle, not medication, straighten up the lifestyle at those levels. Water, yes, very important. Water is so important for every organ system because dehydration will put strain on the system. So adequate water intake, good for brain function, kidney function, cardiovascular function, and immune function. So I hope I've answered those two questions for you, Brother Steve.
Happy Sabbath,
Hello,
Elder
good evening,
Dublin.
Brother Blackman.
I have a question.
Okay,
Yes.
I thought, 1 minute. See, Sister Cynthia Williams was trying to get through before, so let her come and then you can come, please. Thanks. Sister Williams?
Yes, please. Question. I heard you told Brother Austin just now that if your blood sugar before you go to bed is around, what is the optimum that it should be around? Because I find I'm eating a lot healthier, and I find by using almonds, pistachio, and walnuts with my meal, after I finish my meal, on nights my blood sugar is like, when I'm ready to go to bed, I'll say about 7.3, 7.2. Is that too low for a diabetic to go to bed with? Or should I boost a little before I go to bed?
No, you see, well, all of that depends on what medication the diabetic is taking. That is a good sugar. If the diabetic is on insulin, and insulin is going to be acting during the night, that blood pressure can fall. So there must be an adjustment between insulin dosage and that evening blood sugar. But for a diabetic who's not on insulin, going to bed with a blood sugar of 5, 6, 7 would be perfect. If the person is on insulin, the person would have to see if during the night the blood pressure is dropping down towards 2, which would be hypoglycemia and cause problems, and would therefore have to make the adjustment of adjusting either the evening insulin or night snack to prevent nocturnal or during the night drops in blood sugar. Depends on the diabetic and the medication that the diabetic is taking.
Another question, is there any natural thing, instead of say like probiotics, is there any natural foods that you can use that will say stop indigestion if you have a little indigestion?
Depends on the cause. Probiotics help. Eating, maintaining regularity in eating helps. Avoiding things that are obviously irritants. Sometimes fried, greasy stuff irritates people. And getting the stomach checked to make sure it doesn't have the germ Helicobacter pylori in it, which would have to be eradicated. If a stool test that shows that. And then, yes, chamomile, herbal tea, ginger, a small amount of clove, they help to heal the inner lining of the stomach and help to minimize digestion disorders.
What about
Be sure that there's no underlying pathology. Chamomile,
Pineapple works well.
clove. All right, I think Brother Kevin Cole wanted to
Yes.
ask.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Elder again. Happy Sabbath to everyone.
Thank you.
I was listening. Yeah, you alluded to the writing of a medical expert that was stating that the conspiracy theories are causing individuals to neglect vaccination.
To be afraid of
Now,
vaccination, yes. Mhm.
being afraid of the vaccination. Now,
Yes.
Elder, a lot of things is deemed conspiracy. I mean, if we were probably to post maybe a writing saying that vitamin D will, guard off the virus, that would probably be labeled conspiracy. So we weigh both arguments of the medical world and arguments even what they call conspiracy. And I want to ask you, what confidence can people have in this time regarding to this COVID vaccination when, if you look at the side of the medical world, the vaccine was rushed into development, unlike previous vaccinations, and even the ingredients that the so-called conspiracy theorists, if you read CDC, with the RNA and all that is used to manufacture the vaccine. So I'm asking you, what confidence can someone have in this whole vaccination?
What confidence can someone, or what confidence do I have? Well, let me start this way. There is nothing wrong with messenger RNA. If you know biochemistry, how the cell makes proteins, this is ingenious biochemistry. Our knowledge is increasing. When Japan goes now to make a car, when the Japanese go to make a car, they don't take as long as Ford did in 1900. Because knowledge and technology are always improving. Scientists, I think Dr. Karamita Duggan mentioned this in the past, scientists were always working on the template and biochemical platform for immunizations before this thing happened, so that by the time this thing happened, they had the platform based on research going on for years, so that they could act quickly if there was a global emergency. So the idea that it has been made fast is a non-argument if you understand, one, the biochemistry and its advances in recent years, and the template that had been developing all along. Scientists are not sleeping or waiting for a pandemic. They're constantly doing research and studying these things and looking at how to get these things done when there is a need. So the speed of the reaction doesn't reflect a shortcut. It reflects the tremendous advancement and incessant work over the past decade. That's one. Messenger RNA is no problem. Messenger RNA, there's an ingenious piece of biochemistry. We know the virus is an RNA virus, so we know the messenger RNA codes for the particular spike protein when the virus infects us and it comes into our cell. By the way, my time is okay. When the virus comes into our cell and puts its messenger RNA in our cell to make its various parts. That is what the virus does. The virus hijacks our cells and puts its messenger RNA for us to make its parts. That's what the virus does. So the biochemists and the molecular biologists, thank God for wisdom, studied it carefully and just took the messenger RNA that is responsible for producing not the whole virus, just the spike protein, put it in a carrier virus, inject it, the carrier virus, like the cold adenovirus, goes into the cell. Our cells see get the messenger RNA, produce the spike protein. Our immune system sees the spike protein, make antibodies to it, so that when the whole COVID virus comes, we have antibodies to lick up, mash up, destroy the spike protein, and get rid of the virus. So there's nothing wrong with the biochemistry of vaccination. There is nothing wrong with the immunological science of vaccination. And a lot of lies are being told about the whole process, frightening people. And I really have no sympathy for conspirationist theories, nor those who push it. I recommend people to get their vaccination.
Oh, okay,
No.
Elder Dublin. But one thing though, I mean, you mentioned, advancements in technology and science. Now, the last time I checked, when experts rush advancements, and the recent Boeing 737, a lot of crashing take place. And if we as Adventists, I mean, we believe in God's complete righteousness, which takes time. So we don't like the whole rushing process because there's always some flaw. Remember, Elder Dublin, we're talking about sinful man, right? And even some of the news reports, you find that they're having a lot of complications. As you mentioned, the virus continue to mutate. You mentioned that. The virus continue to mutate. So in advancement or non-advancement, you can't blame people for not being confident in it when it is rushed. And that's my take. I mean, you have your opinion, and that's fine.
Yeah, no problem. But what I think people are saying is that if these conspiracy lies weren't floating around, people would be less afraid. For example, when you take your newborn child to get immunized for school, there are no conspiracy theories against diphtheria, whooping cough, and smallpox vaccine. You're going to get your child vaccinated, and they go along. Look at how polio used to ravage Jamaica, and polio used to ravage the world. Up came the polio vaccine and put polio in history. If when the polio vaccine came several years ago, the 1950s, when Salk worked it out, and people were getting it, and there were conspiracy theories, people would have been afraid. But people got the polio vaccine, and you don't want to see people walking around with their lower limbs paralyzed because of the polio vaccine, because of the polio virus, sorry, and the polio vaccine put paid to all of that. So vaccination has a history of saving mankind from terrible diseases. Ellen White took the smallpox vaccine when she was about to go to Europe.
Dr. Dublin,
I think we just have to bear those things in mind.
yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Dublin, I just want to say, though, that there still are conspiracy theorists against all vaccines. We even have some in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is ridiculous, but they are. And even though I agree with you, there should not be, the reality is that even here, there are a number of persons like Rastafarians and some persons from church who have to submit a document to the Ministry of Health to get that exemption from the vaccine, and they do it. So every year there are a number of persons who still hold to the fact that they don't think that their child should be getting vaccines. But because we have a 95% vaccination rate, they are more or less protected by the herd immunity. So that is kind of the difference between that and the coronavirus vaccine. Now, right now, there's no herd immunity because this vaccine is new, and therefore persons need to take the vaccine in order to be covered. All right. And we have to wait till we reach an 80% rate for the other persons who are conspiracists to really feel the effects and benefits from the others taking the vaccine.
Thank you.
Hi,
All
good
right.
evening, Brother Douglas.
Yeah, but let me see. My time is gone.
We're out of
The
time.
last question.
Okay.
Last question.
Still go ahead then.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So far in Barbados, I've heard about 1,800 plus persons recover from the COVID-19 infection, and therefore would have been released from isolation to go back to normal life. My question though is there any medical evidence to suggest that when people recover from viral infections, not necessarily COVID-19, but viral infections generally, can such persons still be infectious for maybe even a couple of days or weeks after they've recovered? That's the question I wanted to ask. But now we're almost out of time.
If after the person has recovered, if they're still
They can
infectious,
still be infectious for even for a couple of days or weeks after, yes.
not
And I'm
usually.
asking question with reference to viral infections generally.
Not usually. Not usually, no.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for the questions. Remember the importance of keeping your general health and your innate immune system in good shape. And thank God for the health message and the principles of primary prevention. Let's close with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our sharing in health, the importance of primary prevention of the health message in these serious times in which we live. We give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. So thank you.